How would you handle it if you only had 4 minutes to do an interview? And let's flip that script. What happens if you're the guest and you've only got 4 minutes? My guest this week, that's where his roots come from. He works in television. He's worked in television. Now he's got a podcast, and now he helps people become better speakers. If you want to learn more, stay tuned. Mitch, thanks for coming on today. So your story and the background in this is there's probably going to be some people that are going to be like, that guy's familiar, because you spent a lot of the 90s as a pitchman on Home Shopping Network, right?
About 3 years.
That's awesome. And to me, I've got to wonder, you started as the pitchman. And now you end up, first off, I know you coach a ton of people in terms of becoming keynote speakers, in terms of showing them how to offer their brand. But how did you go from pitchman to podcaster? And is that a far bridge?
Oh, that's about a 30-year bridge. So I sold on live TV during the 90s and Home Shopping Network. I would sell other people's products, not my own, other people's products. So I got exposed to being very precise, managing my time, wrapping a lot of benefits and why people should buy versus talking about features. Remember, features tell, benefits sell. Fast forward, did that for about 3 years, selling other people's products, to speaking, which I have been a speaker for about 40 years on stages. I've spoken on stages in 63 countries and have taught lots of other people about the craft of selling from the stage and also keynoting. I don't focus on the MC part. I've done some MC work and done panel work, and I've certainly done trainings. I like trainings the best because people take away a lot of value. When you're able to see them transform with a 3-4 day training. How did I get into podcasting? I still have a TV show on Channel 3, NBC. I don't work for NBC. I'm an independent host. And I've seen where TV is going. It's losing market share.
Sure.
People of my generation value television the most. But the world's changing. AI is here. Podcasting has made a major shift. It didn't have any traction in the beginning. Now it does. And it's continuing to grow. People are paying a lot more attention. So I saw where the market was going, and I said, I think I can do this. Very comfortable on camera. I have no problem talking. I've been a radio show host, in Los Angeles. Some years ago, I had an hour-long show on Saturday afternoons on live radio. But there are some subtle differences. We can go back and edit out mistakes. You can't make mistakes on live TV. It is the ultimate test. But I'm really in love with podcasting. I can do this while sitting on my rump. Whether I'm wearing something below my shirt is optional, as long as I don't stand up. Okay? I get to use a professional mic just like I had from my radio show days. And I get to meet interesting people from all around the world. It truly has no limits. When I was on radio or I was on TV, you had to physically be in studio.
Sure.
You did have some call-ins. People would call in, but the audio quality wasn't there. You're using a professional mic. We're both on Rhodes. Yeah, we're both on. Oh, no. No, I'm on the Shure. I have a Rode also, a high-end Rode. I use that. That's my travel mic. I use that when I'm outside because this is fixed to my desk. I love being able to do this. I met you. We now have a connection. Who knows who you're going to introduce me to? Who knows who I can introduce to you? There are all sorts of opportunities because of podcasting that very different than what TV has had provided me, but it gave me a lot of background to be able to do what I do today.
It's interesting you say that, because when you look at the market share numbers and things of that nature, what's interesting is I read something a few weeks ago that the average age of an MSNBC viewer is 70.
Yes.
And that's the average age. That's not the high. That is the average age, which to me is like, holy cow. And that's eventually they're going to run out of those people, unfortunately. I get this. So yeah, it's a shift in that. The thing that I like that you mentioned was the meeting people and the collaboration piece. And I mean, because early in your career, when you're on HSN, you're speaking to a blank lens, and you're trying to speak to a huge number of people. Do you find
5 million?
Yeah, which to me is insane. I always feel like lucky when I get 5, and one of them isn't my mother. That being said, like, do you feel that the podcasting is more collaboration than it is the trying to broadcast to everyone? Or where do you see that fits in between the 5 and the 5 million, I guess is what I would say?
Well, when you're on TV, you are speaking to a lens. You may have a host that's there working with you that you're engaging with if you're a guest. The time is quite limited. It's very structured. So an average interview is 4 minutes or less. It rarely exceeds that for a subject matter expert. So there are time limits. Podcasting, as you started out, we could go from this amount of minutes to that amount of minutes, and wherever it takes us, it takes us. And it allows a lot more of a dynamic. Rarely have I interviewed anybody less than 20 minutes. I think one person was 15 minutes because he was so deadpan, I couldn't get anything out of him. So I had to wrap it up and answer for him. I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. You've had to have had a few of those. And you can fill it in with commercials. There's a lot more creative latitude with being a podcaster. TV is highly structured, very limited to what you can do. And I like the idea of being able to edit. You can edit. As opposed to live TV, there are no redos.
No.
You can't say, oops, let me start over. No. You better be on point. It's a lot harder.
Oh,
takes
sure.
a lot higher expertise to be effective on television. Podcasting, you can fake your way in the beginning. You can fail your way to be successful. It takes numbers and time and feedback.
Sure. I want to touch on something there. You said the average TV interview was 4 minutes. I find that fascinating because to me, it's something that I never even thought of is like, when we're going to sit here and talk, we're going to talk for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever. And the amount of information that we're going to exchange over that is going to be big. 4 minutes, like what can you get out of that? And I guess my question is, like, if you're talking with someone for 4 minutes, how did you drill into the specific things, or did you have to stay very general, I guess would be the question with it.
All right. I place people on television. I work as a book publicist, an author publicist. So I'll get them on NBC in Tampa or ABC in Tampa as an example city. I just did client recently there. I have to get them so focused on answering questions concisely and on point because there are usually 3 to 5 questions that are asked during that 4-minute interview. And you cannot mess up if it's live. Some of the stations are live. Some of them are taped to live. So they may run through and tape a bunch of people, and then they air it at a later date. So they have some in the can, so to speak.
Sure.
Very similar to us. We put it in the can, and then it airs later, gets uploaded later. So the 4 minutes is fast, man. It's over. It's over quickly. Whereas we have a lot more time. We have 10 times the time to do this. And we're having a conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Whereas it's interesting because then to me, those are two very different things then, because we're conversing about a topic, whereas that interview is very much like these are the exact points and don't really waver from that. Is that is that a good assumption with that?
Pretty much. And the host, in most cases, I would say in every case, I can't think of where they didn't review the guests beforehand, looking at, you have to fill out an intake form. Here are the questions that you want asked. And then they creatively, some robotically, there are good hosts and there are not so good hosts. Most are trained broadcast journalists who've gone through the school to be competent. Like you teach a podcast course. I'm sure you may go through some dummy interviews with your class so they get better at it. Without doing it, how do you possibly get good at podcasting without doing it? You have to go through the motions. And I'm sure you're a better podcast host today than you were in your first one.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's something that we always talk about, like the don't be afraid to suck. The first time you got on a bicycle, you did not take off on a 20-mile ride. You tipped over. Once they took the training wheels off, you tipped over, you crashed into the fire hydrant. You got back up and you're like, okay, I'm going to try this again still. That's,
Exactly.
It's interesting to me because like in so many cases we talk about like pod fade, how I believe it's 86% of episodes don't make it past episode 14. And that's because people realize that it takes the work and things of that nature. And something that I want to address in that, your trainings that you do to help people in that is the example that I always like to give. And I'd love to get your take on this. I always joke that in some cases we should make podcasting equipment more expensive. To raise the barrier of entry. I see it as people are like, well, I can talk, so therefore I'm a good podcaster. And the thing that I equate it to is like, I drove to my studio, so therefore I'm a race car driver. What do you say when people think like hey, I know how to talk, I know how to ask questions. As you train people for that presence, to be the host, do those things, what would you say to someone that's got that attitude about it, I guess?
Here's why I like television. In order to ascend to the level of being an anchor, which is the ultimate in television, to be an anchor. Then, of course, you have your own talk show. That's a different game. Let's say Oprah's at the top level or was at that top level for that track. But to be a host or to be an anchor during primetime television, let's go back a little bit in time. You have to first assist in the studio, see what the more senior people are doing. Then you become a field reporter and you go out to interview people. You thrust the mic in their face and you put it back in yours. Hi, it's Josh Troche reporting here on the lake. We just saw the clouds come over and it's snowing like crazy. What do you think of that, Mabel? And then Mabel starts talking. Oh, it's really cold and I'm shivering. Great. And then you pull the mic back. Well, it's Josh wrapping up. We'll turn it back over to you, Steve, in the studio on Channel 5 in Ohio. Okay? That trains you to be more effective. So then you jump into the studio, ultimately to become, there's a track. And before you even get accepted into the studio in Ohio, even a smaller station, let's say a small station there, you have to graduate with a degree in broadcast journalism. You have to go through the journalism department and you learn, at least you've gone through mock interviews before you then apply for the job. And you have to be top of the food chain to get a job even at a small, rinky-dink station. To be a podcaster, you hang a shingle and say, iTunes, I'm here, Spotify, I'm here, and buy a nice mic. Or some people, if they're really not into this properly, they're using their phone. Hi, I'm a podcaster. Come on. The barrier to entry is what I think you're talking about.
Yep.
Is so low with podcasting. There are great hosts, and there are many that suck, frankly.
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. So when it comes to your trainings, though, I love how you talked about like there's this experience that comes into it that makes people better, and that's the schooling portion of it. When you're teaching people how to present and how to speak, is it that same type of thing where it's like, look, there's a reason why you're not singing the national anthem at the World Series, or you're not speaking at this large event as a keynote? It's paying the dues and learning how to engage
Correct.
with the audience, and it's learning those skills that most people just aren't aware that they need.
Well, and they don't know until they know.
Sure.
And you have to skin your knees. You have to use the training wheels before you can knock them off. And then you set the example. You hit the fire hydrant. Well, and that also requires feedback. I understand that you consult with people and help them with their podcast. You wouldn't be qualified to do that if you weren't a podcaster yourself.
Sure.
And I believe, for example, my background, I was a martial arts teacher for years. And that's how I got through college. Somebody isn't going to study with me if I didn't have a black belt.
Sure.
And I happen to have a 6th-degree black belt.
Wow.
But I paid my dues to get there. And you simply have to put in the time. You got to put in the reps before your biceps grow. It's pure. It doesn't happen. Just hung a shingle. I want to look like Arnold. Well, great. Arnold did that for 15 years, daily, 2 hours a day, as an example. People want the end result of being a popular or be an authority or an influencer without paying their dues. It doesn't work that way.
No, it's interesting, and I love how you put that. Kind of parlaying into that, you talk in a lot of cases about how you say your brand matters more than you think. Like,
oh yes,
what is your like I guess I would say like when did that click for you?
Well, let's define first, and let's agree on what's a personal brand. It's what people say about you when you're not in the room.
I love that.
Yeah. What are they saying when you leave? And then if you put your ear to the door, you're going to find out how you're perceived in life. Period.
The good old glass trick.
Yeah, exactly. That's the visual that we can. Yeah. What are they saying about me? Are they gossiping? And it might hurt. It might hurt, Josh. It's a matter of what do we do with that? What do we do with that pain? Do we grow from the pain? Do we wallow in it? Do we call out for mommy? No. You take it like a man or a big girl, big woman, and a responsible person, and you grow from it. Because pain causes change. Or you're going to continue to stay in the pain. Now, there are some masochistic people, but that's a different podcast.
It's funny you say that because I do see so many people that and you have to be willing to take the feedback, because there's often times where we'll give feedback to hosts and they'll be like, I kind of like what I'm doing, and we're like, well, no one else does.
Look at the numbers. Yeah. Won't the numbers tell you?
In many ways, yes. In many ways, they do. And there's two sides to that I say on that. Is, of course, I love the pay your dues piece, because the problem is most people don't want to sit through that pain of the pay your dues piece. And it's why I always tell people, if there was 10 people in the room next door that wanted to hear from you, would you go talk to them? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, then great. Record the podcast, because it's going to be the same thing. You're going to get 10 downloads. Go do it. That is absolutely awesome. But it's, once again, it's putting in the pain. It's building that audience. As to say that as someone that is currently unfamous, not infamous, unfamous, that's with a U. How do you feel like the podcast can help, like, give them a tangible return on investment, whether it be in growing the thing, or do you think it's just putting in those initial first reps to get the biceps?
I think you got to put in the first reps to get past. I mean, it's interesting, and I'd love to understand the source that you said. I think it was 86% make it past episode, what was it, 18? 18?
15.
15. I know that most podcasts fail after episode 8.
Yes.
The statistic that I read.
It's 50
Very
after
few.
It's 50 after 8. It's 86% don't make it past episode 15.
Okay.
So yeah, it's only 14% that make it past episode 15.
Yeah, so it's because it's not easy. You've got to edit, you've got to be interesting, and the ROI is not there for a while. And I heard something recently where I had a man on my podcast, and he said he made a mistake. He guessed it over 900 times, and 101 podcasts in, he had an epiphany. He had a wake up. The light bulb went on where he finally monetized. You have to keep digging, digging, digging. I'm sure you've seen that picture. Don't give up at the man with the pickaxe until he gets to the gold. And it took him 101 guest appearances to where he made money. He changed his focus from thinking about the audience giving him business, but it was the host that turned out to give him business. And then his whole conversions changed. Like, I'm coming into this, you and I now have a professional relationship. We've related to one another. We'll learn about what you do, and if I can refer people to you, great, and you'll learn what I do and refer. That's the rule of reciprocity. Whether we get the listeners to refer to either one of us, I look at that as a bonus. And I get to grow my contact lists from around the world. I like it.
Oh, I'm in love with so much of what you said there, because part of it is, yes, the growing the contacts to, I mean, like you said, you used to be on TV consistently in front of 5 million people. Not everyone gets to talk to people like that. One of the things that I love about podcasting is recently I was working with a congresswoman. I had the president of the Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank in the studio. These are all people that I've been able to work with that is just, I mean, I wouldn't have the opportunity to work with them otherwise, which to me is absolutely awesome. And it's the network extension is huge. I want to go and I want to talk about like how that when you first started speaking, you said you sucked. And when you first started speaking, you said you sucked. Now, is that a realization that you came to later, or is that a realization that you had when you first started speaking?
There was a Cleveland mentor of mine, because you mentioned you're from Cleveland or close to it.
Yeah.
His name is Dan Kennedy. He's a well-known marketer, and I was in his mastermind. And he said to me after I spoke at one of my early events, now I had a background of speaking and selling on TV, but selling from the stage is a completely different platform. Selling to a live audience was fine. That was when they were in TV land, but selling to a live physical audience, completely different skill set. Some of the skills are transferable, but not the same. Similarly, my ability to sell on TV doesn't mean I'm going to be great on a podcast. Do I get to tap into a lot of my skills that I've been able to put in the arrows I put in my quiver over the years? 100%. I believe I'm good on a podcast because of my background. Have I had a tremendous learning curve as a podcaster? Yes. Each platform is uniquely different. And why I like podcasting so much, just as you said, access to experts, access to people that would normally not take your call. I would like to invite you on my podcast. Oh, the eyes get big today because it's a newer, respected platform. If I said I want to interview you on my show, the older demographic is much more responsive to that than someone that is young. I'd say under 50, most have never watched TV.
No, there's many. I mean, I'm 47 and I grew up with the Dukes of Hazzard.
Sure.
But beyond that, it's so funny to see how quickly that tailed off in terms of, and I think part of it is now it's just one of the things that I love about podcasting and just like things like YouTube, Netflix, everything like that, is it's on demand. I always talk about that when growing up, we had channels 3, 5, and 8, 19, and if the clouds are right, channel 43. If all five of them were playing something I didn't like, I just had to deal with the one that I didn't like the least. You know what I mean? Whereas now, I mean, we're only a swipe away from the next show or the next thing or the next whatever. I want to, something that you mentioned just a minute or so ago is you mentioned transferable skills. What is a skill that you realized when you started podcasting? I got to learn this.
All right. The one side is there are flaky people. I'm going to talk about the operations side.
Yes.
You got to lock down guests. Got to lock down guests showing up. They don't take it as seriously as they do television.
No.
The respect isn't there yet. Matching there, I have never had a guest because I'm a publicist for authors to getting them on television. It's how I make my money. That's ultimate. That's where it leads to. I've never had somebody not show up to a TV interview all the years I've done it. Podcast guests flake, man.
Yeah.
Or they show up late. The respect for showing up, it does not match. So I've had to deal with that. I was shocked. I think, wait a minute, we made an appointment and you're not here. Oh yeah, I got busy. Like, are you kidding me? And you're shaking your head. It's probably happened to you too.
Oh gosh, yes.
People, they just don't show up. So I've had to accept it's either the platform, it's the generation, or my follow-up before the interview needs to be different for that platform than it was when or still is when I get people on TV. Nobody doesn't show.
Right.
They have all shown up. They value it. The perceived value of podcasting is not the same as TV yet. I think it'll change over time. In order to get on a top 10 podcast, like if you were invited, you or I were to be invited on Mel Robbins' show, her podcast, or Joe Rogan, you bet your butt we're going to be there an hour early waiting with bated breath to get into the studio with her. We're going to be anxious because I know, I know what that's going to do for us. Whereas Billy's podcast, who just started and he's still using the microphone out of his laptop, isn't going to give us the same procedure. We may not even want to be on that podcast. I've had to stop when somebody was so unprofessional, didn't have a microphone, and they were a host. Sorry, my brand is not going to be associated with you. So I've had to put the brakes on a couple times, 2 different times where I said, interview's over. Has that happened more than to you or to others that you know?
I haven't had that happen as much. I have one of my podcast hosts that we produce for. She has had a few where, like, she had a book that she wrote, and I actually co-host another podcast with her. And she said so many times people would show up and the thing that they would say would be like, so what is your book about? Like, damn it, at least read the back cover. Read the back cover, at least get like, have an idea. I mean, I always like to say, be prepared, put in the same effort at least the same effort that I did on my 8th grade book report. If you're not willing to put in that effort, then why the hell am I here? And that's why too, we've got the questions that we ask ahead of time. I make sure I stalk people on LinkedIn. I stalk their podcast because I want to make sure as an interviewer that I show up and I've got some decent questions, not just be like, so you got a podcast? Because no one's going to learn anything from that. We're here to learn. We're here to share information. And we're here to connect. And I mean, if you're a complete stranger and I have no idea who you are, I have no idea what you've done, and I have no idea what your podcast is about, well, then what the hell am I doing? It's just creating content for the sake of creating content. And yeah, I'll get off my soapbox here. Is that being said,
well received. I get it.
Yeah, I figured you did, especially when you talked about like the branding side of it. It truly is. I mean, it's a big piece of it. As you move forward with your podcast, what do you see for your podcast, and what do you see for the future of podcasting and how things are going? Obviously, AI is changing the game for a lot of things. We're going through a huge amount of changes right now. So what's your plan for the near future, and what do you see as podcasting in the near future?
AI hasn't affected my podcast in terms of the guests.
Good.
It's affected the ability to take notes. Like I use Fireflies to use as a note-taking tool. I mean, there are others that are out there. There's Otter.ai. So I think using AI to help with the production side is improving, and it's probably going to get better for us. I'm hopeful, because you understand the pain is editing. That seems to be the bane of most podcasters and why they leave, because it takes work.
Yep.
It's elbow. So what I'm going to do for my podcast, I'm going to become more focused on people with bigger followings, bigger names to get in, to raise the bar of who I'm interviewing. So it's not just another podcast. There are people that play the numbers game, and I've conducted about 150 interviews, and now I was doing about 10 to 15 interviews a week to get those numbers up, because I wanted to show my legitimacy. Now I'm going to cut it down to probably 2 or 3 a week, cut it back to two or three interviews a week, and be more selective. I've put in the numbers, and I can be more selective at this point.
I like that. And that to me goes back to that putting in that work, putting in the initial work to make sure that, okay, hey, I've laid the foundation. I've laid the base. I've got the basic skills. I've started to step past those. So what's the next step for it? It's funny.
Upping my platform.
Sure.
And that's why I talked to you a little bit about the tech. You're using Riverside. I've been using Zoom up to this point, and it's worked. But I'm going to change. I'm going to make little additional tweaks. Like I like the fact that you've got your stickers in front of you. You've got I'm going to look at changing my background. Am I going to green screen or not? But it's not all overnight. I think I'm going to make little improvements, and little hinges swing big doors. So little improvements all the way through.
Ooh, I like that. That's a great, I haven't heard
metaphor,
that.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Truly is.
Yeah.
That all being said, the one thing that I always like to ask as we kind of start to wrap up is, if someone as a business owner, as a promotions person, as a marketing person, as whatever, if they're thinking about starting their podcast, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give to them to be like, do the thing?
You'll get exactly what you have if you do nothing. You have to, yes, you'll stay exactly where you are. I mean, 3 types of people. I use this as the metaphor, and you'll like this one too. There's a bus, a progress bus. It's got a stamp on the outside of it. It's called Progress Bus. 3 people, 3 individuals. The early adopters will jump on that bus and do it, and take the risk of doing it, and then figuring it out on the way. Because Sir Richard Branson said, if you see a great idea, leap on it and you'll figure it out later. You got to take the leap. That's why he's jumped out of balloons and done all these things, or jumped out of airplanes and, ballooning. Got to take the risk. The second person will comment, gosh, I guess I missed the bus. I'll have to wait for the next one. And then there's the third person that doesn't even see the bus. Doesn't even recognize the opportunity.
I was about to say, does that person end up under the bus?
Could be under the bus. Yeah. There you go. There you go, Josh. Thank you. No, we talked that through. We masterminded that one. Yeah. They're under the bus. That's better.
That's a great
So
way
the
to put
opportunity
that.
bus, somebody jumps in the front seat. Second one says, I'll take the next bus. Meanwhile, the person who jumped on the bus in the beginning is already being successful. Early adopter took charge, jumped in. Then the other one is thrown under the bus. I like that. The third one. Yes.
Absolutely love it. With all that, this conversation has been awesome. I really appreciate the time today. Where can people find you?
They can go to my podcast, which is the Amazing Authorities Podcast.com. And they'll see, and then, of course, that links to Spotify and iTunes and Amazon Music, where they can pick it up. And that's the best place to listen to the podcast. I would say go there first. Or they could find me on iTunes if that's their chosen platform to find me. Or they want to go to my website, mitchcarson.com. That's for different ways to utilize my skills. But that's the easiest way, is to go to the podcast.
Absolutely love it. We will put that information in the show notes in the description. Mitch, I really appreciate your time today. Greatly appreciate it. I am going to take a few minutes. I'm going to summarize some of my thoughts here, because you gave me a lot to think about. And I will be back in a few. Mitch, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You can tell Mitch has spent time in production in other realms, and I'm going to kind of connect to that here in a few seconds. But I found Mitch on Podmatch, and the reason why I wanted to talk to him, because he has all of this experience in television and radio. He's got this industry adjacent experience. What's interesting about that is that, like, he brought up the point that I didn't realize, that most TV interviews are 4 minutes or less. Can you imagine if you had 4 minutes with a guest? And to me, it's an exercise that you should probably partake in. And it's something that I'm going to look at here moving forward. If I only had 4 minutes with this person, what would I say? What would I ask them? It's really going to sharpen the interviews when we start to look at it that way. I've got a limited amount of time. How can I ask the best questions, the most direct questions in that limited amount of time? Awesome thing to look at, because once again, you guys have heard me say this all the time. How long should my podcast be? As long as it's interesting. If you're asking better questions, like, longer podcasts are not necessarily better. People see these long podcasts and they think, oh, I need to have a 3-hour long show. Those are two professional people that are creating that 3-hour long show. For you to make a 10 to 15 minute show that's really concise and really sharp, you're going to be so much better than if you make a 40-minute show that kind of meanders all over the place and just covers a bunch of randomness. Keep it sharp, keep it simple. Think about what you would accomplish and how you would do things if you only had a 4-minute interview to work with. Really, it was an interesting thing that he brought up, that it's something that I'm going to focus on to see what I can do to sharpen those skills. Speaking of skills, he talked about these transferable skills. There's some skills that I think, yes, transfer from TV, transfer from radio into podcasting. I mean, he talked about, like, there's pieces of podcasting that he really had to learn that were different. And I found that interesting, because I make references to them all the time. And I guess I would say that there's parallels. There's some things that are adjacent. If you're charismatic and a good host in one, it's probably going to be easy to adapt to another. But in the same sense, there's different skills that are needed there when guiding that interview. And once again, I'm going to take it back to the 4-minute interview thing. We've got a longer amount of time. If you've only got 4 minutes of an interview, it's going to be pretty easy to keep it really sharp, really concise, and exciting and pointed. If you know you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes of an interview, oftentimes you're going to give it that chance to wander a little bit. I have found when it wanders, probably 9 out of 10 times it wanders to a weird place. 1 out of 10 times is when it wanders to someplace that's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I didn't realize that. So keep it sharp and work on the skills necessary for that. When it comes to the skills, most of us don't know, like it's part of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you start to get into it and you think, oh my gosh, I know everything about this. And then all of a sudden you cross this hump where you realize, oh my gosh, I know absolutely nothing. For me, my podcasting journey, when I first started out, I'm like, yeah, it's just audio and throw it up there. As I have gotten into this, I have learned how complex and how intricate this can be. Now, the cool thing is it doesn't have to be. You can start out with just something very basic if you want to and just post it up and run with it. And that's that low barrier of entry that we were talking about. It's simple. It's easy. Record something. Heck, you can record it on your phone. Record it there, post it up, and away you go. But if you want to be good at it, if you want to get to the next level, it becomes that much more intricate. I'm going to use a driving example here because when you look at a Formula One car, if you look at a picture of a Formula One steering wheel, there are more buttons and knobs and switches and levers on that steering wheel itself than there probably are in your entire car. And there's no heating and air conditioning controls. There's no radio in there. There's not CarPlay or Android Auto or anything like that. It's a different skill set. And most people get in their car and they think, well, I could drive an F1 car. And I tell you what, as soon as you would look at that steering wheel even, you'd be like, what the hell is this? How do I operate this thing? Because, once again, everyone thinks they could get into that car until they realize how complex it actually is. Learning those skills, always pushing to say, how can I ask the better questions? How can I be a better interviewer? How can I be there better for my audience is a huge one. Ask that question, get better at the skills, and once again, look for the feedback. Hey, how did that go? What's one thing that I could do to get better next week? Ask people about that. The other one is the metaphor that he said, little hinges can move big doors. Put in the work. Every day show up. I've worked out for years and I've seen a difference. When I look at pictures of me from 12, 15 years ago, there's a big difference there. When you look at it on a daily basis, you're like, you don't see that difference. It's the same thing with podcasting. You have to put in those reps. You have to just get out there and do it. And you have to build the thing. You don't build a foundation. You put bricks down one at a time. And son of a gun, you look back at some point and realize, hey, I built a foundation. So don't think that you just throw a bunch of bricks in the hole and you've got your foundation. Build those one at a time. Every time you record, every time you put that out, you are building that foundation. And to me, that is really the greatest gift that you can give yourself in the future. Speaking of the future, I hope you stick around for the future. Make sure to subscribe. I would love to hear a review or a comment. By all means, let me know what you would like to hear. Let me know who I should be interviewing. If you have questions about your podcast, do me a favor. Make sure you sign up for the 15-minute no-pitch podcast consult. I'm not going to pitch you anything. We'll talk about camera position. We'll talk about microphone position. And I will answer any other podcasting questions you have. It's all about making you better. As really, our core value as a company is success is a shared thing. With that, do me a favor. Take care of yourself. If you can, take care of someone else too. I will see you very, very soon.